Okay, so I'm going to mute everybody, just so that there's not background noise. We will have a chance to speak at the end. So first of all, welcome everybody to part 2 of Remembering Muizenberg. I will be letting people in as they come in late, so apologize for that technical delay. First of all, I'd like to thank the speakers from last week who were absolutely wonderful. Leonard Weinrich, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, from London, who I'm not going to read your whole bio, which I should have last week, but we were under time constraint. Today, we're not under time constraint. So I will just read very briefly. Leonard spoke about Trappler's, his aunt's grocery store. And it was very, very interesting. He showed some pictures of what I see now at the end of my road, but what it was like way back when. And Leonard opened up the Memories of Muizenberg exhibition at London's Jewish Cultural Center in 2013. So that was a very, very interesting presentation. Colin Shapiro, I'd like to thank you as well. I can see you on my screen. Colin is still a local in Muizenberg per se. He has his offices nearby. And he spoke about everything from the Leos to Beitar to Vereniging to taking trains. Whoever missed that, there was really quite something. There were so many details. I would imagine many, many memories conjured up over there. So thank you, Colin, as well. And lastly, Henry, I see you on my screen as well. Henry, thank you also so much, talking about being a Boy Scout and singing, Muizenberg songs and all these types of things that you did. Henry, as the other two, has lived also a very interesting life. He has been a lawyer. He grew up in Muizenberg. He represented very, very famous people, including Nelson Mandela, Albie Sachs, Robert Sobukwe, and many others. But the most important thing, at least to me, is Henry felt that part of him has never left Muizenberg. So thank you, all three of you speakers for last week. Now we're going to go to this week's speakers. And just to have whoever hasn't been here, just let me explain how it's going to work. So first of all, my name is Rabbi Newfield. I'm the Rabbi of Muizenberg Shul. And if anyone wants to talk to me about anything, I'm always open ears. Second of all, I just thought that this would be a good idea just to connect people to their memories of this place. And Colin asked, can everyone give their email addresses to me? I will send my email addresses in the chat, and you're welcome to email me. I'd love to have you on file and be able to share with you what's happening in Muizenberg. Today's first speaker is Ruth Riflin, who is in Muizenberg still. I'll read you her brief bio, and then I will highlight Ruth. Wherever you are, I think there you are, I can see you. Ruth was not born or bred in Muizenberg, but she came to live here in 1958 as a young bride of 21 years old and has loved living here ever since. Older generation of Muizenbergers know the Riflin family had pharmacy here since 1947, when her father-in-law took over from Nati Wortreich. When her husband, Melville, qualified as a pharmacist, he joined his dad, and it was a real family business. Although Ruth had her own career as a medical technologist, they roped her into the pharmacy as well. Ruth will be taking time about typical memories that people may remember seeing with their own eyes, as well as some of the changes she has witnessed in Muizenberg over the past 63 years. I thank you, Ruth, for agreeing to speak, and please help us with some recollections of Muizenberg in the 1960s, as well as any other thoughts that come your way. And after all three speakers have spoken, I ask everyone to just mute themselves. I'm just going to mute everybody. Okay? Mute everybody. Ruth, you're going to have to unmute yourself, Ruth. You just have to click the little button and unmute yourself. And I'm going to put the spotlight on you. If I can see where you are, Ruth, I'll look for you in a second. Just give me, I've got like a lot of people to search through. There you are. Ruth Riflin, spotlight for everyone. Thank you, Ruth.
I'm going to start in the 1950s, when Muizenberg was in its heyday with a vibrant Jewish community, both permanents as well as holiday makers. For the Yom Tovim, the shul was packed, with the children having to sit on the steps upstairs. And the overflow went to the services which were held in the Herzl Hall in Wherry Road. In those days, we had Rabbi Weinberg and Rabbi Rockman for many years, very different from today. One colorful character at that time was Reverend Frank, who was the shochet. He could be seen in his brown striped dressing gown going down to the beach every day for a swim, even in winter. And all those years in the pharmacy, I watched the children of the visitors growing up. They were like family. I can remember one December, just before Hanukkah, a little 9-year-old boy who was the son of one of our Johannesburg visitors. He came into the shop very upset because he said he wanted to buy a present for his mother, but he didn't have any money and he wanted to give her a Hanukkah present. So please, could we wrap something nice for him and put it on his mother's account? And then we often had customers phoning to ask us to buy a loaf of bread at the grocer's next door and put it on their account. There were many blue bottles around in the summertime, and their sting was very painful. The kids used to come into the pharmacy screaming as the string of the blue bottles would wrap themselves around their bodies. So Melville made up a concoction of a local anesthetic and something else. I don't actually remember the exact formula, but all I know is it certainly solved the problem. At that time in 1958, when I first came to Muizenberg, there were no supermarkets as we know them as such. Irene Sachs, she was the wife of Solly Sachs, who had the butcher next door. She had a grocery store, and she would send the messenger on a bicycle with an invoice book in duplicate with a carbon paper, and you would write your order down, a pound of sugar or whatever you needed. And then at the end of the month, you would receive your account with those same invoices in your handwriting attached. A far cry from today's technology with online shopping. Then there was the handsome Portuguese greengrocer Manuel in Palmer Road. He had really first-class fruit and vegetables, which he would also deliver to your home. But his account system was something else. It was housed on the counter in empty cigarette cartons with bits of cardboard in alphabetical order with the names of the customers and the amounts of money that they owed. Then there was a cart driven by a horse selling fresh fish, who would drive around Muizenberg blowing the fish horn. How the shops have changed. There was Danker's on the beach road where you were forced to buy your school uniforms. That day, well, in today's day, that area is lined with surf shops and restaurants. York Road was a hub of activity. There was an excellent CNA, and I can remember a Truworths as well as a Cuthbert's. And then on the corner of York and Main Road was Variety Store, owned by Harry Gordon, another colorful character. There you could
record it, by the way.
Sorry, Ruth. I'm going to mute everyone and just unmute yourself again. Okay, just unmute yourself again. Okay, whoever arrives, please mute yourself. Okay, please continue.
I was mentioning how the shops have changed, and there was Variety Store where you could buy anything from a needle to a haystack. And we never even thought of leaving Muizenberg to go shopping. Now, for the children in the school holidays, they used
Sorry, can I just interrupt? Sorry, whoever's talking, please can you be quiet? Whoever's talking, please mute yourself. I'm going to mute everyone again, Ruth. So please mute yourself. When everyone comes in, they automatically.
Nobody got it yet.
Okay. Please continue. Sorry about that.
I was saying that in the school holidays, in the sunken gardens where the swimming pool is today, they used to have all kinds of variety concerts for the children and competitions. And I can remember one competition, I think it was a fancy dress, that's right. And my children entered as Adam and Eve, and I had stitched leaves all over their bikinis, so only their skin was showing and these leaves. Clifford, then age 6, had an apple, which he had taken a bite out of, which he should not have had. And Joy, then aged 4, had a toy snake. They won first prize. Then there was the Snake Pit Beach, where many shidduchim were made. In fact, that is where I met Melville, but it was not in the range shidduch. The transport was very, very different in those days. The trains were clean and safe, and the children traveled down the line to school for a few rand. However, over the years, I've witnessed so many changes in Muizenberg during the 60s and the 70s. Muizenberg went into a downward slump. The upcountry visitors, especially the Johannesburg ones, they stopped coming once they discovered Umhlanga Rocks in Plettenberg Bay. Hedy Davis has written at length about this in her book, The Shtetl by the Sea. So, most of the hotels, which were once so well patronized, had to close, leaving Muizenberg derelict and sad. There was many a day in the pharmacy during the winter months when we would see not one customer. However, as is well known, there's been a resurrection of Muizenberg. The beachfront began pumping, mainly due to the surfing, which has caught on big time, as well as the empire development. Many well-established restaurants opened up, and the rest is history. My children grew up on the beach. Although they both live overseas now, they absolutely love coming back, and they do so every year. That is before COVID. Looking forward to whatever change the future holds for Muizenberg. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ruth. That was wonderful. I'd like to know by just lifting your hand in front of the screen, does anyone remember Rabbi Frank in his striped swimming gown going to the beach? Okay, so there are a couple of people who recognize that. Does anyone remember Mr. Gordon, who Ruth was talking about as well? Okay, so we've got quite a few people there as well. Thank you, Ruth. That was wonderful. And I will share the picture of your children winning the competition in Adam and Eve at the end of the video. I didn't want to interrupt with the pictures, but thank you very, very much. And if anyone wants to comment on anything that Ruth said at the end after all three speakers have spoke, I encourage that. Okay, you're getting comments, great talk, etc., Ruth. So thank you very much. I knew you'd be great, Ruth. I told you. Okay, next we go to Mervyn. Now, where I have to find Mervyn. Where is Mervyn? What is your screen name, Mervyn? Is it okay? There's Jackie. I see there. Okay. So Jackie, let me just somehow highlight you here. I'm going to read out the just before you start speaking, Mervyn, I just want to read out your. Okay, it looks like you're in Hawaii or something. So that's fantastic. Dr. Mervyn Rosenberg gave the opening speech for the Memories of Muizenberg in Cape Town and Johannesburg in 2010. The exhibition subsequently traveled the world, always attended by full houses. Mervyn is a 77-year-old third-generation Muizenberger and has 2 sets of great-grandparents buried in Cape Town. He is married to Jackie and has 2 children and 3 grandchildren. He went to school in Cheder in Muizenberg and sang in the shul choir as a teenager. He studied dentistry at Wits and retired from dentistry last year, Mazel Tov, after 52 years in the practice. During varsity holidays, he was a beach photographer for movie snaps on the Muizenberg beaches. He is still a member of Muizenberg Shul, and according to the late Frieda Shapiro, through his family is the longest continual member of the Shul. Again, Mazel Tov. One of his great pleasures is to sit in his late father's seat on Yom Kippur, and I remember having that discussion with you that it was the first year last year because of COVID and that you could ever remember. Thank you very much, Dr. Rosenberg, and now the floor is yours.
Am I muted? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to give the original speech that I made, which was 11, 12 years ago. Welcome to Muizenberg, South Africa's premier holiday resort. It is the turn of the century. It is summer. It is holiday season. Muizenberg at its best. The village of Muizenberg is inundated with visitors from the Transvaal, the wealthy, the mining magnates, Cecil John Rhodes, Sonny Marks, Sir A.B. Bailey, and the Oppenheimers, to name but a few. All of them have built holiday cottages. Actually, they are mansions, some of which have been designed by Sir Herbert Baker, who also spends his holidays in Muizenberg. Bathing boxes have been built on the beachfront. The men stroll up and down the beach discussing business, and the women sit on the beach dressed in the high fashions of the time. Children are playing at the water edges, fishing and sailing toy boats on the Flay. Olive Schreiner is also a regular visitor to Muizenberg, as is Rudyard Kipling, the poet, who wrote a poem about Muizenberg, White as the Sand of Muizenberg, spun before the gale. The locals in the village are going about their business. They need to sustain themselves for the off-season. Frikkie Oret is selling fresh fish, which has just been tricked. His wife runs the dairy, and on the main road near the railway station is John Brown's general dealer shop. Many hotels have sprung up in the area. The Marine, the Park, and Farmer Peck's is now called the Grand Hotel. Farmer Peck's is a remnant of the past when Muizenberg was a halfway house to Simonstown. We moved to the 1920s. It is summer. Muizenberg has changed. It is no longer a little village, but a growing town, albeit a suburb. It is the swinging 20s. The people now wear fashionable bathing costumes on the beach. The hotels are buzzing and new hotels have sprung up. The big names, the Oppenheimers, the Schlesingers, Sir J.B. Robinson, they're still coming to Muizenberg to their holiday homes. Other dignitaries are staying at the new and very posh and modern hotels. There is a wooden pavilion. There is plenty to do in Muizenberg, dances at night in the hotels, a bandstand next to the pavilion. Surfing has taken off, long 6-foot wooden surfboards. Muizenberg is probably where surfing originated in South Africa. Muizenberg, in spite of this huge growth and influx of people, has still retained its village atmosphere and character. The local inhabitants are a very close-knit community. The wooden pavilion, built in 1911, was demolished in 1929. At the same time, the new pavilion was completed. For a while, both pavilions stood together. The wooden pavilion was closer to the mountains. The new pavilion was spectacular, an architectural masterpiece designed by Grant, a grand reception hall with seating for 900 people, a restaurant, a milk bar. It had everything, a promenade that had been designed in such a way that together with the pavilion and the bathing boxes, a wind-free beach was created. The Snake Pit, my Muizenberg. There are approximately 600 Jewish families. The local industry, schools, and hotels are largely sustained by this community. A magnificent synagogue had been built in 1924. The synagogue is not big enough for the high festivals and summer holidays, and an overflow is needed. The Talmud Torah Hall, even then, there is very often only standing room. The services, they are read by Rabbi Weinberg, Cantor Goldwasser, and the Reverend Frank. Who can ever forget Reverend Frank striding down to the beach in his striped dressing gown at 6 in the morning to swim? He continued to do this every day until he died, no matter what the weather. The shamus is Mr. Brook. There is a choir that practices every Tuesday night. The choir master is Benny Galansky. Mrs. Goldwasser at this choir practice used to give us freshly baked sponge cake and oros for tea. Our remuneration for singing in the shul choir is 1 guinea per year. The Cheder teachers are Mr. and Mrs. Shmulensky and Miss Singer, There are 9 classes, 3 by 3. We now move to the 50s, to the snake pit. The snake pit is the beach for teenagers. Parents are supposed to go to other beaches, such as the Balmoral Beach. It is in the snake pit that we play touch rugby and bok. It is here that many romances started. Many of those romances have resulted in marriages. It is here that we meet the girls and boys from all over the country. Everyone is friendly and having fun. Everyone sits together, no matter what the age. We, the beach photographers, are taking photographs for movie snaps. We are rubbing on Brill cream and olive oil for tanning. We are smoking Texan, Lucky Strike, and State Express 3.5s. We are making dates for a night out to the Bop Floor, to the Milky Bar, the Vic Davis Show, to Norman's Cafe and the Empire Bioscope, and a walk on the promenade, touching the end for good luck. It is January now, and the wealthy holiday makers are in Muizenberg. The butler, wearing his white jacket and red sash, arrives at the beach, followed by an entourage of staff bearing platters filled with freshly fried fish or chicken for their midday meal. Leipke, the Yiddish-speaking fruit vendor, is selling fruit. Leipke. If you don't remember him, he will remember you and your family and who your young girlfriend or boyfriend was at the time. Leipke's mother was a domestic in a Jewish household in Muizenberg. He grew up speaking Yiddish before he could speak English or Afrikaans. He was as much a part of Jewish Muizenberg as the rabbi. His actual name is Sydney, but he was renamed Leipke due to his stature as an honorary Jew. He never failed to phone me on any of the Yontavim. His only regret, he said, is that he was not put into the Jewish old-aged home at Highlands House. Leipke passed away in 2012. The Empire Bioscope. Mr. Phillips, he always wore a tuxedo and a black bow tie, whether it was a matinee, Saturday morning double feature, or Saturday evening show. On Saturday nights, we wore a jacket and a tie. The cafes, the Muizenberg of my day, did not have restaurants, but honest and unpretentious cafes. After Bioscope, we would stop off at Norman's Cafe for a hot dog or a hamburger. Between the Empire and Norman's Cafe was the Maccabi Cafe, owned by Tex. The Maccabi Cafe was the first cinema and was renowned for its pinball machines. It was the hangout for the local ducktales. Adults only went to the Majestic Cafe. Palmer Road was the business center of Muizenberg. Mr. Schneider was the kosher butcher in Palmer Road. The floor was covered in fresh sawdust. Mr. Schneider was able to traber a hindquarter. That is, he would remove the vein and the hindquarter would become kosher. Then there was Trappler's and Mrs. Schneider, who made fresh bagels, the Ziffs, who sold fish, the Levenstein's poultry and eggs. Mr. Brent, a deaf mute, was the shoemaker and an absolute whiz on the races. There were 2 dairies in Palmer Road, the Millers and Mr. Stoch. Mr. Stoch delivered his own milk on a bicycle. There was also a 3rd dairy in York Road. We bought fruit and vegetables from Mr. Rod on the main road or Mr. Gallius in York Road. Just down the road was Kent's, where you could buy anything. James Moram on the main road sold everything from a pencil to paint. School uniforms were bought from Dankers. Who can forget the beef on rye from Irene Sachs' Delicatessen? There were 3 pharmacies in Muizenberg: Shagham's, Reichlin's, and Max Rosenberg. The doctors in the area, to name but a few, were Henson, Gordon, Shapiro, Novice, Blumenthal, and Krichler. The dentists were Henderson, Fullul, and Eisman. Before school, we all used to go down to the beach to swim with a cake of soap and take a shower. I can remember the trekking of fish early in the morning and my father taking home fresh harders, which my mother grilled for breakfast. In those days, we could get fresh chalyun, harders, hottentot, and many more varieties of fish. I can remember the fish cart, the horn blowing, announcing their fresh wares. We had an unspoilt and uncomplicated childhood. I lived in Yarmouth Road. On the corner was the boathouse, where the second Muizenberg Jewish Scout movement held its meeting. If you walked down Yarmouth Road, you would pass the homes of Emden, Singer, Loon, Marcus, Frank, Coleman, Chyatt, Glazer, Kay, Hope, Lurie, Michaels, Lockridge, Lazarus, Kushner, Miller, Shapira, and Oblowitz. At the bottom of Yarmouth Road lived Gus Levine, one of the characters of Muizenberg. He taught us how to play beach bats. Behind me lived the Castons, Dermans, Silbersteins, Garbs, Blumenthals, Apters, Musicants, Zabers, and many more. We were all friends. We still are all friends and still see each other regularly. My memories of Muizenberg are of a very happy time, of a very close community, a big family of relationships that last to this day. It is difficult to describe this close relationship to anyone who did not grow up in Muizenberg. Muizenberg was so, not because of Muizenberg, but because of the people that lived there and the holiday makers, the camaraderie that existed between us, the relationships that were built and still last. It was not a wealthy community. Our parents were generally first-generation South Africans, but it was a rich community, rich with love and respect. We felt blessed. We were living 365 days a year in this special place, a place that existed because of a set of circumstances that came together, but will never come together again. A holiday resort built by the British Empire and a set of Eastern European immigrants who were arriving in a new country and who adopted this holiday resort, even as the colonials abandoned it and remolded it to the energy. But these people are all gone, as are all the aspects that made my youth so wonderful. We have the berg, we have the lake, the surf and endless sand. We have all these memories of a wonderful childhood, of a wonderful, loving and caring community, and of bonds that have lasted forever.
Thank you, Mervyn. Wow, I've got Gavin Blumenthal saying Mazel Tov, Uncle Mervyn. Okay, I'm laughing because there were so many things that I was thinking about. One thing I was thinking about is, by a show of hands, how many of you had your first kiss from someone that you met at the snake bit? I think you're all going to say. I think you're all going to put up your hand. Okay, pretty much there was so much in that, and I'd like everybody to take a minute to write something down, what Mervyn said that you remembered, so that, you know, after our next speaker, you can mention it, because I know that there's so many things going on at the moment, so many details, so many memories. So just take a few seconds and just write it down somewhere so that you can remember what you wanted to say. Thank you very, very much for that. I'm very sorry that I didn't get to see the 2011 or 13 exhibition, but that really made up for it. Okay, that was an amazing, amazing speech. Thank you very much, Mervyn. Lastly, Gerald Scepter, very interesting topic you chose, magical, mystical Muizenberg. I'll first read out the bio, and then we're going to go straight to you, Gerald, and I'll put you as the highlights. Gerald Scepter was born in Kalk Bay in July 1942. I'm just going to mute everybody because some people arrived late. So Gerald, you'll have to unmute yourself. Gerald Scepter was born in Kalk Bay in July 1942. He lived in Muizenberg, went to Muizenberg Junior and high schools from 1948 to 1959, and qualified as a pharmacist in 1965. Gerald married Sharon Rabinovitz, whom he met on the famous snake pit. Okay, there we go. And lived in Rhodesia. then Zimbabwe, before returning to South Africa in 1980. They have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. They lived in Johannesburg for the next 40 years, and Gerald worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a US multinational and later in a South African surgical and pharma company specializing in eyes and skin. Gerald jokes that he has the dubious distinction of having introduced Botox for cosmetic use into South Africa. Again, mazel tov. So Gerald, I'm going to now put the spotlight on you, and please, grace us with your presence, whatever you'd like to say. Very much looking forward. Have I made Gerald the spotlight? I think so. Yes, Go for it, Gerald.
Magical, mystical Muizenberg. A village at the foot of Africa, a shtetl of 600 Jewish families, became like a Chagall painting, a mystical, magical place, and it was a privilege to grow up there. One of my earliest memories is standing next to my father in a packed Talmud Torah hall on Yom Kippur, being transfixed by the beautiful melodies of the mystical Unatana Tokev. And I tell this really to illustrate only how full to capacity not only the shul was, that we couldn't be there, but even the little Talmud Torah hall overflow in Wary Road. Henry Brown's lovely recollections of Second Muizenberg brought back wonderful memories for me. The dark smells of that boathouse, the thick tobacco miasma of Mr. Kohler, I think his name was. And he seemed so ancient because of his aura and his connections to long ago and darkest Africa. In retrospect, he was like a character from a Joseph Conrad story. The dank boathouse, the wooden walls hung with buffalo heads and other animals were redolent of deep mystery to an innocent Muizenberg boy. Henry spoke of how the parody or skit Smoke Aroma had clinched the Gordon Shield in 1954 for the troupe. I was there the following year when those same talented guys introduced a parody of South Pacific as a campfire follow-up. Perhaps somebody remembers what it was called. I don't. I remember my solo song, which went 101 pounds of fun. That's my little honey bun. I recall that better than I remember the school song. Our campfire songs were so good. Coming in on a Wing and a Prayer was particularly moving and popular. And I learned later that it was hugely popular in the Soviet Union as a heroic song of the great patriotic wars. Ours, I think, was the Anne Shelton version. By the way, I had contact with Hilton Ross recently. I'm sure many of you know him. And he mentioned how in awe they at Fisher Sea Scouts were at Second Muizenberg's Gordon Shield achievements. I can't remember what the South Pacific parody was called, but I do remember talk of a skit based on Tchaikovsky's ballet Swan Lake. It was called Dacre Flay, but I don't think it got any further than the name. Talking of the flay, we had a boy in our class called Ian Linden. Ian was mad about all things naval, and he had balsa wood models of what looked to me like the entire Royal Navy in his flat in Arlington Court. One night, I had a sleepover at Ian's, and his dad told us that he'd worked out we could catch fish from sunflay without any lines or hooks. All we needed was a lantern and a dark night. So at about 9 p.m., we hopped into a boat on the Flay, warmly dressed, but we took no lines, no poles, no hooks, no bait, just a large lantern. And we placed it in the middle of the boat, and we set off with 2 oars, and we rowed. And then we floated, and we floated, and we floated, and we floated. The lantern, of course, attracted mosquitoes by the million, but nary a fish. The theory had been that the light would attract the fish and they'd leap out of the water and land in the boat. Well, Ian left Muizenberg and eventually joined the Royal Navy, and I heard he'd become an admiral. It may be myth, I don't know. I Googled Jewish admirals in the Royal Navy and I didn't find anybody. The Flay was also where we fished for carp, and we discovered that carp were only good for one thing, as part of a mix for gefilte fish. We also discovered that there seemed to be only one buyer for our carp. And so she commanded the price, and she was the Chazen's wife, Mrs. Goldwasser. That was our introduction to the concept of monopoly or a cartel of one. My own credentials in Muizenberg go back very far. My great-grandparents, Chana and Abram Crickler, set up their kosher hotel there in 1914 in Albertine Road in a pair of semi-detached cottages. It was Muizenberg's first kosher hotel. They then moved to the Mountain View Hotel in Alexander Road in 1927, and their next hotel was called Crickler's and was situated where the Sharon Hotel, later called Shrimpton Manor, was. It was opened in 1930, while my granny and grandpa ran the Mountain View Hotel from 1928 to 1952 when they retired to Watson Road. My dad's brothers and his sister went to Muizenberg School. My uncle Barney Crickler was the GP in Melrose Road opposite the Rio Grande, and we lived over the bridge in Jabula, Dartmouth Road. House names were very important then. The best, in my opinion, was the Tobaccans in Upper Towers Road. Their house was called Rogue's Den. Get it? Roger, Jeffrey, Sorrel, and Dennis. Very cool. And yesterday was Dennis's 80th birthday. The Raikens' house in Dartmouth or Dover Road was called Nicar. Don't think that was very original. And the Apters was Washington Heights. And talking about the Apters, I remember that waggish entry in the school magazine which said that Merle was apt, but Daphne was apter. And I loved that meaningless absurdity. As much as I love Bobby Lockitch from Yarmouth Road pointing at a sausageless shelf at the butcher shop through a window and saying that the worst is still to come, W-U-R-S-T. And my dear friend Gus Ferguson commenting on the beautiful Herbert Baker house on Beach Road called Swanbourne and adding Swanbourne every minute. My young memories encompass the enchanted childhood of leaving home every day to play, coming home for lunch, then out again, roaming wide and free. Wide games we played all the way across the bridge to the areas above the junior school and Boys Drive. And of course, Cowboys and Crooks was the game. On the beach, it was beach bats or bok bok or touch rugby. I can also recall a bunch of us playing on builder's sand in an open plot in Windermere Road next to the newly built Silverstein house, and Barry Blumenthal telling me where babies come from. No, Barry, I said, you must be kidding. But as I got older, I realized the big influence on me from my Muizenberg years was my introduction to jazz. It stayed with me the rest of my life, and although I never learned to play an instrument, it's always been a strong driving force in my life. And I guess that introduction came from the older guys like Julian Feinstein and Leonard Weinrich and Roger Tobaccon, and through Dennis Tobaccon, who was my age group and with whom I was very close in high school years. Julian Feinstein, I remember, once told me very, very patronizingly, there's a new guy called Miles Davis, but don't even try to listen. He's much too advanced for you. The Tobacco family, by the way, also introduced me to a more acute awareness of the terrible political situation in South Africa and encouraged my social awareness. In general, our culture was very America-centric. The cars, the clothes, the magazines, the movies, everything was American, and of course, so was the music. The town was, I would say, predominantly middle-of-the-road Jews. We did have some things like Oneg Shabbats, which were fun and a good way to meet girls. People didn't wear yarmulkes outside of Shul, Cheder, or Shabbos dinner. I do not remember benching after meals, although granted, I was at an age when one ducked from the dinner table as rapidly as possible to ring doorbells and run away and do whatever mischief we could think of. As very small boys, a friend and I would secretly stand on top floor of the Mountain View Hotel and weed down on passers-by on the pavement below. And we thought we were terribly funny. And so these are some of my memories of Muizenberg. When I was in my teens, I did feel that sense of Muizenberg being perched at the end of the world, next stop Antarctica. And I saw in an interview with Moxie Marlinspike, the CEO of Signal, his feeling about living in Venice Beach, California. And I thought what he said, I often felt about Muizenberg. He said that living in Venice was like living at the end of the world, the end of history. All the decisions had been made. This is the world we get. I guess Muzies was a little like that. But now when I go back, the magic is still there. It's unspoiled. The sea, that beautiful, beautiful false bay, and the magical mountain. And for some years, one thinks back in the last century, this place was like a Camelot for Eastern European Jews. We were extremely lucky to be part of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Gerald. That was mystical and magical. I'd like to first of all congratulate all three speakers, all very different, each one with their own style. So many memories conjured up, I'm sure, from all three speakers. Before we go on to personal comments, I'm just going to try and see if I can share my screen just to get some photos of, what we were talking about over here. I don't know if you can see my screen. I hope you can. This was what Ruth Riflin was talking about when her children won the competition for Best Dressed Adam and Eve. And then these are some photos that Gerald sent me of the Mountain View Hotel, the Hotel Rio Grande. I'm not even sure what the other ones are. Maybe Gerald, you can, mention what those are in a second. I just wanted to share those quickly with everybody. Now I'm going to go back to Zoom, stop my sharing. And if you'd like to comment, we've got a beautiful comment in the chats from somebody over here, and I almost could read it. Do I have your permission to read it? Who is this? Phyllis. I'm Phyllis Friedlander, maiden name Davidovitz. My father was honorary life president of Muizenberg Shul. I was married from Muizenberg Shul by Rabbi Weinberg and Rabbi Abrams of Garden Shul. Mr. Andrews was principal of Muizenberg School, where the police station is now. Vic Davis used to play in the pavilion every Sunday evening. Many of us traveled by train to Weinberg School or Saks. I remember the choir on the Bima. I remember Mickey Friedman was in the choir. Reverend Frank went to swim in his dressing gown early every morning. That's what you said, Ruth. And broke a rib climbing a ladder. Maybe someone knows about that story. Cantor Goldblatt really didn't have a good voice. Okay, well, you said it. I didn't say that. There was the snake charmer we called Yaldi Fubela. I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. Who sat in front of the old pavilion because that was what he said when he opened his 3 big baskets with snakes in them. And the snakes rose in rhythm as he played his flute. The shul was the center of our life. We youngsters all went to shul every Shabbat and Yom Tov. Like Gerald, I remember the carts with fresh fish blowing the fish horn and all. Thank you so much, Philip. That was very, very beautiful. Hope you don't mind if I read it. And now if anyone wants to unmute themselves, feel free. You can either ask if anyone's seen anybody, a name, or you can say something that either Ruth or Mervyn or Gerald mentioned, something that you want to share with everybody. I don't even know how to do this, but maybe unmute yourself and just start speaking.
Okay, can I say something? Rabbi,
Yeah, can you just say your name, what it is on screen,
this is
and I can
Barry
highlight you.
Blumenthal. Barry
Uh,
Blumenthal.
Barry Blumenthal.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to say something quickly because
Yeah.
I'm on a road trip and I've delayed leaving Memphis, which Gerald, you'll know, is the home of blues and jazz. I was in Beale Street last night listening to good jazz. This is a wonderful mitzvah, great talks, and I've just returned yesterday from Graceland. And as Elvis would say to the speakers, thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you, Barry.
I'm leaving.
Fantastic. And I hope you make your trip wherever you're going. Thank you, Barry, very much. Does anyone else want to say anything? And just say your name first so that I can highlight you. Just unmute yourself if you want to say.
Jaime Reingold.
Say the first name again, sorry.
Jaime Reingold.
Jaime, I hear you, Jaime. 1 second, let me find Reingold. Okay. Yeah, you're in Reingold. I see you. Spot everyone. Go for it.
Yes.
Go for it.
Hello.
I'm calling from London. Gerald mentioned the Rakins. I think it's Barbara Road, and the name of their house was Nicar Rakin backwards. I was married to Myrna Rakin. She passed away in 2001. She was a Muizenberg girl, went right through the Muizenberg school. And I'm sure lots of you people will remember her brother was Wolfie Rakin, who was in the Scouts. And Jaime Rakin, her father, was the president of the Muizenberg school, I think on several occasions. I remember dating at one time Judy, what was the rabbi's name? Weinberg, Judy Weinberg, many years ago in the early days. I remember playing touch rugby many a time. We never lived in Muizenberg, but my family always hired a house for 2 months. I went to Sachs school. I remember going to Sachs every day, early in the morning with my father. He went to work in the town. We're from Muizenberg, and returning home in the train every afternoon. I remember the Vic Davis show. I remember the saxophonist Charlie Hamilton. I remember the home of Simon and Rose Davis. I think it was Minster Road. It was a mansion. I was friendly with Bender Davis and often slept over in that house. So there are many, many wonderful memories of Muizenberg. Spent a lot of time there. And I even went with my late wife, Myrna, to the Muizenberg Old Boys and Girls reunion one year. Must have been 25 years ago. There was only one prize that they had in a raffle, was a radio. I won that radio. So it was a wonderful time and full of memory. And of course, I know Mervyn Rosenberg very well. I appreciate all the talks, and also I've been following the program, and I will in future as well. And I thank Rabbi Ryan for presenting it in the way he has. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime from London. Thank you for all those comments. And I can see a lot of people smirking and smiling when you're talking. And our condolence, of course, for your wife and long life. Who else would like to say something? Just mention your name first. We're going to go only for another 10 minutes. So if anyone wants to say any closing comments, please share.
Yes, I would like to say something. The name is Farrell Hope, but I'm listed as Peggy Hope.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, what I wanted to say is just tell you, because I didn't know that I'd be able to show photographs, proof of how the relations formed in Muizenberg last a lifetime. I have a picture taken in 1961 on top of Muizenberg Mountain, 3 of us standing next to a tent in which we were camping. One of those people is on here Barry Blumenthal. Exactly 40 years later, we took the same picture of the three of us standing also next to a tent in the same position, because I remember the old picture, on the banks of the Tennessee River, where we had gone down by motorcycle to attend a motorcycle rally. I think there's few people who can show you a picture taken 40 years apart of the identical people still friends. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Your name is Peggy Hope on this, so that's why I got a little bit confused, but thank you very much. Are you talking from the United States?
Yes, I'm talking from Northeast Wisconsin. I just wanted to say
Wow, okay. Cool.
the reason that
So thank you for coming all the way to Muizenberg for this talk. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Love it.
This is David Sachs. Can anybody hear me? This is David Sachs.
We can hear you, David.
David Sachs. Okay, David. There you are, David. Add spotlight. Go, David.
There were two things. Sorry, I'm driving to work, so I'm not looking at the camera. There were two things that were mentioned today that just brought back some really powerful memories for me. The one was a very simple one. Was the fact that all of our homes had names. We didn't have, like I have now, 1626 Lugano Lane. We were trade winds. And I remember my close friends, and I know Mark was on, lived in Littleton. The fact that homes had names was just brought a tear to my eye the moment I heard that, because I've never forgotten the name of the house I grew up in, which was also on Upper Towers Road. And the other thing that came to my mind was going to watch, some of you may recall, was Trini Lopez playing at the pavilion on Muizenberg Beach during the summer. Those are two things that just came to me. And then somebody also mentioned where you'd walk down the promenade and touch the end. I still have that habit in everything I do right now, is reaching the end of a pier in San Diego and touching the end. So those were the three memories that thank you for whoever brought those back. And thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, David.
Muizenberg was the most phenomenal place to grow up in. And as much as I love living in San Diego, I know I'm always be a Muizenberger at heart.
Hi, Rabbi.
Thank you. So thank you. Who's talking? Thank you, David.
Yeah.
San Diego.
Hi, my name is Evan. I'm actually in Los Angeles.
Okay, so Evan, can I look up what's Evan Krantz?
That's me. Okay, I don't have great memories of Muizenberg.
Okay.
I'm actually a Sea Point boy. And I was introduced to Muizenberg by Harry Garb, who arrived at Sea Point Boys High from Yarmouth Road or Dartmouth Road in 1959. And the reason I don't have good memories is it consumed 60% of my budget every week. Harry had told me how wonderful Muizenberg was, and I had to catch a bus to the station, a train to Muizenberg, a train back, and then another bus, which was 30 cents out of the 50 cents I got for the week. So that consumed 60% of my budget. In addition, the Muizenberg boys, Barry, hi Barry, my medical school friend, Mervyn Rosenberg, whose father I knew so well, who was the president of Weinberg, they terrified me when they played Bok Bok. It was probably the most frightening thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. I was terrified of them, but I was drawn by some of the most beautiful girls I'd ever seen. And therefore, I thought that even as a Sea Pointer, I have a right to just express a quick opinion. Nice to hear everyone. Thank you very much.
Hi, Rabbi.
Thank you, Evan. That was fantastic. Even I was smiling. Okay.
Stan Schulman here, ex-Paulite. The Schulman family were from Paul. We used to.
Stan Schulman. Stan. Go for it, Stan.
We used to come once a year from Paul with the 2 cars, a large truck with all our equipment. We had a semi-detached house in Hanson Road, opposite the Penlew Private Hotel. And with the 2 maids and the 3 dogs and everything else, it was our 6 weeks holiday. We had an incredible time. The thing that I remember so much was the horse and cart and and the selling of the fish and the fish horn that everyone used to come around and select out the fish. And the other wonderful thing that I remember was December was the favorite time when the Coon Carnival came around serenading their homes and that, and I haven't heard anyone speak about that, but that was absolutely one of my favorite times, was the music and the Coon Carnival, and we used to follow them all over the show while they were playing their beautiful music. Muizenberg still remains an incredible memory for me. I'm a very keen photographer, and the thing that I regret the most was never having really photographing Muizenberg in all its beautiful areas and interesting little nooks and crannies that I could have done at the time. And I keep thinking back to that and what a terrible regret that is. Anyway, thank you for a wonderful day today.
Thank you, Stanley, and never too late to take pictures of the nature in Muizenberg. It might look a little bit different, but thank you very much, Stanley, from Paul, at least originally. I'm not sure if you're still from there. Someone commented something about a chocolate. Whoever, there's a lot of comments, so just please read the comments. Maybe we have time for one or two more people to say something if someone would like to.
Hi, this is.
Hey,
Oh, go ahead, Batya. Go ahead.
You, Batya.
Hey, Batya speaking. I'm speaking to you from Zichron Yaakov in Israel. My bedroom here where I'm sitting is a mamad, which is a shelter for if there's rocket fires. My children have just said to me, "Mommy, we're coming down because there's going to be warnings because they're going to fire rockets at Haifa and so on." Anyway, that's not about Muizenberg. When you speak about a photographer, does anybody remember the beach box that had a lion, a stuffed lion in it? And we used to climb on the lion and we could have our photos taken on the lion.
Yes, I've got photographs. I've got family photographs on those self-same lines. Yes.
Somebody said something about a wind-free. There was no wind-free beach in Muizenberg. People used to phone myself. I married a Muizenberg boy, Leslie Sherman, and we would get a phone call early in the morning to say, "What's it like in Muizenberg today?" And I'd say, "Well, it's fine now, but I can't guarantee that there won't be wind later on," because they'd come to me and they'd say to me, "Batya, you said it was lovely, and look here, it's all windy, and our chicken from our cooler boxes is getting full of sand." Mervyn, I never knew his name was Sydney, but he was a good friend to me. He used to sell his king peaches, his tasty king peaches. And I said to him, "Letka, you don't charge me what you charge the Johannesburg people. I'm a Muizenberg person. You don't charge me what you charge the Johannesburg people." So many memories. I've made a few notes here. One last mention, I'll say, Mervyn was a naughty boy right through his school time, his young days. There was a bulldozer on the beach which smoothed out the sand. Often there was this bulldozer and would smooth out the sand because the waves would bring the sand too near the beach boxes. So who got on the bulldozer and drove the bulldozer? Mervyn, do you remember that? You're a naughty boy. That's all. Yeah, that's it.
Batya, first of all, thank you. There's multiple comments. Somebody earlier said, would it be appropriate to make a prayer for Israel? I just got another comment here saying, "Am Yisrael Chai, our thoughts with you. May you and your family and all the people there be safe and sound."
Ronnie, talk to Rabbi Newfield himself.
Okay, my history with Muizenberg started later on. I went there on holidays as a little boy, but then my family, the Davidsons, came to stay in Cromer Road, and then I think they moved to Yarmouth Road around the corner. Brenda, Richard, and Wendy, and I was very involved with the Muizenberg WhatsApp 2-3 months ago when Wendy was so ill, unfortunately passed away. Alison, my dear cousin, got me onto the Muizenberg WhatsApp, so I see a lot of your names now coming up when I met them. So going back even further, went to university and I met a group of guys called Barry Lockett, Barry Blumenthal, Farrell Hope, who I can only remember, Farrell, with your beetle boot. You still have your beetle boot with the beetles on there. I remember that. I thought you were such a strange guy. very, very unusual. But I met all these and Harry Garb, Evan Clark as well. I got to know all of them. I was taken. I see David Lazarus there. That goes back further to Baker Camp in South Bay in Port Elizabeth. But with Barry and I think Carol, I was treated to an evening at the Moon Hotel in Lakeside on a Friday night. Went to twice, and then touched back on the beach. Mervyn only a bit later, but we had a lovely breakfast together with Mervyn, Barry and Harry Garb 3-4 years ago. Anyway, it's lovely to see all of you. Thank you.
Another chief prosecuted. He says, despite
Great. Well, thank you, Ronnie. I'm just going to end it off because there's still another few sessions. So I want to leave some for the other times. I'm sure there's like lifetimes to talk about. But thank you in particular to Ruth Riflin. I'm not sure what that background noise is. I'm not sure if you can hear that. Thank you again to Ruth Riflin, to Mervyn Rosenberg, and to Gerald Scepter for really amazing presentations. Very different to the first three. So, each time I'm learning something different. And thank you all for being here. Someone told me that I'm going to get 100 people the second time. I laughed at the person saying, no, last time we only got 72. There's no way there's going to be 100 people. Well, we hit over 100 people this time. So thank you everyone for coming here from around the world. Wisconsin, San Diego, London, Israel, Sea Point, Cape Town, Paul, wherever else you came from. Thank you very much. See you next week with 3 different speakers next time. Thanks a lot. God bless. Now you can say hello to everybody. Everybody can unmute and say hello. If you'd like to say hello to each other, you're welcome.
Hi, Alison.
Hi, Cliffy. This is David.
Hi. Yes, he's saying hi.
Thank you.
Hi, Yeti.
Hello, Joan. Joan.
Hi, Alison. Hi, how are you doing?
Everybody.
Lovely to see you all.
Mervyn, well done.
See you next week.
Mervyn, well done.
Yes,
Hello,
lovely
Joan.
to
All of you. Everybody was fabulous.
But yeah, stay safe and well.
Given that I haven't read, it's probably about 800
Alison, where do I know you from?
Muizenberg.
No, you weren't Rosata. What was your surname?
Once Vice, and then I married.
On YouTube.
And then I married Richard Davidson. By the way, they landed up in Bath Road at the end. After
Lovely. Hi.
Danny Schulman, I haven't seen you in 100 years. And Ronnie Davidson, hi. Ronnie, weren't you from PE?
Yes.
They were the Davidson's cousins from PE.
Yeah, but from PE.
Yeah.
Yeah, PE now from London.
Yeah, okay.
That's my picture. Hello, Joan.
Yeah,
All back the cost, yeah.
Stanley.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I was there all the time.
A blast from the past.
I saw all the pictures, but I didn't see your picture.
I've been trying to unmute myself. Listen, Mervyn, there are a lot of people I don't know because they're a little older than me.
I was going to say, yeah, I know Schneider as well. Late sister was married to Morris.
It's my sister-in-law. Hi, Joan.
Thanks again, Rabbi Ryan.
Okay, everybody.
Jean Tucker, good afternoon.
That's the main thing.
Cheers, guys. Have a good week. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Recording will be sent. I will send the recording on email and it will be passed around.
You know that background that he's got?